When you shop at a Walmart Vision Center, you get it. You know that you'll spend a little less on stylish glasses for the whole family.
Welcome to the Vision Center. Let me know if you need help finding the perfect frames.
Hey, Mom, you were right. These glasses are cool.
Hon, they take our insurance. That means Papa's getting a new pair, too.
Whoa, glasses start at just $39. Next stop, groceries.
So you can get a little more of what you need. Find a Vision Center near you. Save money, live better. Walmart.
UFOs, psychic powers, chemtrails. To learn about mysterious events, you listen to the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast. And here's where it gets crazy. Now you can read all about your favorite conspiracy theories in the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book from the creators of the podcast. Dive into a smart, witty explanation of the unexplainable, packed with amazing illustrations. Available now. Order today at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com or wherever you buy your books.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello, you beautiful podcast humans who are listening to this show about independent music, whether it's punk or hardcore or indie rock or emo or metal, whatever you want to call it. Small, sweaty rooms, people with guitars, maybe sometimes playing it very loud, maybe sometimes with drums, different variations. Or these are people who are documenting it in some capacity, because that's essentially what I am doing here. This is an audio zine for those of you that are of zine orientation. But anyways, I have a great episode today with Ryan Hoffman from, in my mind, the legendary hardcore band Chain of Strength. And he also runs an incredible record label called Quiet Panic Records. For those of you that are deep Chain of Strength heads, realize that that is a Chain of Strength lyric, this Quiet Panic. Yeah, that I feel. I'm just going to stop there because otherwise I would sing the whole Chain of Strength record to you and no one needs that. But Quiet Panic Records, home of Slow Crush, which is one of my favorite newer bands, that whole shoegaze vibe. They also put out records from Spiral Heads, Tennis System, Filth is Eternal. Go visit quietpanic.net to find out more info. But I put Ryan through the ringer in a positive way of just talking to him about his time within punk and hardcore, why he still stays connected to it, his time in Chain of Strength. It is very, very fun. So first of all, you can leave this show a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can drop a star review on Spotify. You can also email the show 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I've been getting some correspondence recently from all of you kind people, and I do appreciate that. And if you hear a little noise in the background, that's my dog. She's chewing a chew toy because, you know, no better time to do that than the present of me recording. But anyways, those are the things that you can do as favors for me. Also, support the sponsors in this show. If you hear me voicing an ad, that means I have personally endorsed this thing. And that is what makes this podcast kind of go around as far as a monetary thing. So I would appreciate the support there as well. And if you, of course, have any ideas, you can email me as well. Like I said, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I always love to have that correspondence. But let's go. Let's talk to Ryan about his record label, his time at Chain of Strength, and so much more. Because we're approaching the 500th episode soon. And I can't wait to tell you who's on that episode. But let's talk to Ryan. Here we go.
Will always stay with me and die. Will I wait? Maybe it's just not coming back. But 5 years down the line now, you won't save me. Of what I went through.
I think, and I'm sure that you can not only agree with this, but understand where I'm coming from. You know, I definitely think Chain of Strength was and still is very much a starter kit hardcore band. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. It's just kind of like, here's the first 10 records you get when you start to get into hardcore, and more specifically straight edge hardcore. And I'm sure upon all of the different iterations and generations that have got into hardcore since you guys were an active band, I'm sure it's just endlessly entertaining for you to kind of see that wave of, interest. And then, maybe a couple years people, don't mention the name as much as they did the previous couple years. Do you kind of watch that ebb and flow? I mean, not watch as in you're tracking it oh man, let's trade the Chain of Strength stock. It's up.
Yeah.
but just that idea of like watching that kind of, filter through the scene, as it were.
A little bit. I'm not really following it. I find it interesting at times where I see there's a lot of bands that have chain in the name, so it's exciting. And also, the bands that have strength in the name. I mean, I don't think they're all just targeted at Chain of Strength, but it's nice. I feel like we have influenced, a lot of people all over the world, and that's exciting. I think it's great, and it's shocking as well. I'm always baffled, someone's always sending me, like a restaurant or, just different things that have, our logo or, it's really cool. It's really cool how it's transcended, through different genres and different things. It's just cool.
Sure. And I think partially why I would kind of put myself in your shoes and think that it is interesting is just because all of these unlikely places in which not only the band name, but, True Till Death and just that whole notion that exists fall into places that you're just like, wait, what the hell? Like you said, like restaurants or whatever, people just, like really dialing in on the aesthetic that, you guys were doing, which obviously at the time you were just like children and had no concept of a quote unquote legacy because no one did at that time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We just, just put our best foot forward. And again, we were influenced by so many different things ourselves. And, our logo looks a lot like Bold, it's just, I just think I think it was our drummer, Chris, as well. Like he was really into aesthetics and, using a color and everything. He was really just into branding, like super early on where I didn't care. I just, I was just like, give me the guitar. I want to play, I just want to go and travel and meet people. And that's what excited me. But he was really more into the sort of branding aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you always are going to have that one person, two people in the band that are interested in either the business aspect or the design aspect. And it's just always an added bonus when you have that person in a band because you're like, oh, they're somewhat good at that. Like I don't even know how to like cut and paste a thing together, like let alone design a record layout.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. It's nice to have somebody that has that vision. I think that was the cool thing about the band. We all added our little, vision into the band, and it's helpful. Like you had mentioned, when you have these people that have this vision and can add that, it just, just really helps the momentum of the band.
Mm-hmm, totally. And we'll dig a little bit more into, Chain as the conversation goes on, but I wanted to focus specifically on you. Were you actually born and raised in Orange County? I was, trying to do some of my, sleuthing, my internet sleuthing on you. And I was like, I don't know enough about Ryan to know if he was actually, coming up in the Orange County, as it were.
No, actually, I was born and raised in Brooklyn in New York. And then my parents moved out to Long Island. And but pretty early on, my dad was transferred to California. So we moved here, I was pretty young. So I spent most of my life in Southern California.
Got it. What sort of job was your dad in that he got transferred out here?
Yeah, he was in sales and he was just looking, I think he was looking to, just branch out and get away from, all the family drama. And he was just ready for, something new. And I know my mom had a more difficult time leaving her family and friends, and that's a tough thing to do. So, but he, packed everything up, and we drove out here. And yeah, it was for the best. I think I really loved just growing up in Southern California. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I can imagine too, like you said, from your dad wanting to have a change of pace and a whole different perspective, moving literally the exact opposite across the country. Like there's no more drastic change than that.
Exactly. Yeah. I just think he was ready for change, just, get away from some shady individuals. Like, it was kind of like, let's start over. Let's start fresh,
Sure.
He tended to do that quite a bit.
Got it. And how old were you when you moved out here?
Oh, wow. I must have been 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty young.
Got it. So you don't have like these long lasting memories of, I mean, I'm sure you have fleeting memories of New York and that general area.
Yeah, exactly. Just fleeting memories. And they were, great, fond memories. But most of my, formative years was in Southern California.
Got it. And where specifically in SoCal did you guys end up? Was it Orange County or was it somewhere else?
We were, in Orange County. We started in Buena Park. I remember living right by Knott's Berry Farm, which was cool, but then we moved to the city of Orange, and that's where I, started going to school and Little League, playing Little League and all that kind of stuff was in the city of Orange. Got it.
And what was the rest of the family structure like? Like, obviously mom and dad in the house, but do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one brother. It was pretty just your normal, typical kind of blue collar family. Nothing extravagant, but we, had a great time. It was, wonderful childhood, but, just living in the suburbs, enjoying the nice weather, swimming in people's pools, Sure. So, it was great.
And are you the oldest of the two?
Youngest.
Okay, got it. So you were the baby that got away with everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's funny because I always joke about those stereotypes with brothers and sisters, but for most of the time, like, people agree. They're just like, oh yeah, I was the first one and I got completely, like, overwatched by my parents. Or then there was the other one where it was like, oh yeah, like, they just kind of let me do whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think, it's like the older child sort of like, puts them through everything, and then they kind of ease up on the second child. So
right.
Life was pretty good for me.
Sure. Yeah. You're like, thanks, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
And so as you started to, go to school and start to experience a little bit more outside the house, what kind of kid did you find yourself being? Like you said, you were, doing Little League and stuff like that, but, were you outgoing? Were you attracted to, art? Like, where was your head at?
Yeah, I was super outgoing. I've always been sort of super chatty and into, I always loved having a lot of friends, being surrounded by a lot of people. So that was more my personality, outgoing. Yeah. Got it.
And did you care about school as you started to, go into high school and stuff like that?
I found, just skateboarding and music, and, I was not a great student because I was distracted.
Got it. You were not that interested in what was happening inside the classroom right in front of you.
Exactly. I was busy, writing songs in my head and, drumming on the desks, driving everyone crazy. Yeah.
Right.
That was me.
Got it. So you were kind of the, and I don't mean this in a bad way, you were kind of the spaz of the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, cool. And I know that just in previous interviews you mentioned, and most people of your generation and, even generations that followed got into, punk and hardcore and more independent trains of thought via skateboarding. Even though you were, second on the scene in regards to, your brother, was he getting into that at all? Or where were you getting, I guess, introduced to sort of skate culture?
Yeah, I think it was from friends from Little League. I really, that, and who I'm super close with to this day. We're family friends. We've been through a ton of things together. This kid, Craig Richenberg, and his brother, he had an older brother, Scott Richenberg. And they got both myself and my brother into skateboarding. And that's totally where, we learned about punk and everything. But more so like I got way more into it than my brother. He sort of went a different direction, and he was more into sports and school. And I got super lost when I learned about just skateboarding, and it was just like perfect timing, just everything. The age, I was like 12 years old, and I just learned about skateboarding. It just turned out there was like this amazing contest at this skate park, and it was just amazing. It was just like skateboarders and just everyone's dressed so cool, and the music and everything. It was amazing. So I was in. And it just turns out also it was at a skate park in Orange called the Big O skate park, it was the Gold Cup series where there was just like these amazing skateboarders and everything, and then it turned out like the next day, we got word that there's going to be this band that's going to be recording a music video, and we were just like, what? And then I was telling my parents, hey, can you take us to this? And they're like, okay, and it turns out it was Devo was recording their music video inside the pool where the skaters were skating, and then they picked out a few top skaters, and they were skating also while the band was playing, so it was just like, wow, that hit me at 12 years old, and I was just like, this is amazing. I want to be in this scene.
Right? Yeah, that's really cool to have that tangible experience that happened right in front of you with this band that was clearly larger than life because they were wearing all these amazing costumes and stuff like that. So that's just really cool.
Yeah, it was super special. I was so lucky.
Yeah, and I think it's so many people gravitate towards skate culture and those experiences within punk and hardcore, but I would be remiss if not highlighting the fact that it's just like so much of that came out from Southern California and emanated worldwide. And it, like, to have that experience, like you were talking about, in your backyard is so, even if you were experiencing it in different parts of the country, there was something that just hit different with being located in SoCal.
Yeah. I couldn't speak for anywhere else in the US, but yeah, it was amazing for me. It was just like perfect timing. There was, punk was just exploding. I got to really watch it. I was really young, so I couldn't really be a part of it. But just as a bystander, there was so much going on in skating and in music at that time. It was explosive. It was so cool.
Yeah. And also, I'm sure with your age, like, you weren't understanding so much of probably what was being put in front of you in regards to, like, scenes and how different bands sounded. You were just like drinking it all up and being excited about it.
Yeah, totally. And then it's funny, I thought I can totally remember like buying, then I got into like buying records and everything, and I thought they would all be awesome. And it was so funny. I was pretty young, and I saw this, this kid in this record store called Licorice Pizza, and he was buying the Talking Heads record, and I just said, oh, he looks cool. He had whatever spiky hair and everything, and I thought, because I was into the Adolescents, Black Flag, and then so I thought, oh, if he's buying it, I'm buying it, and then I took it home, and I was like, oh, whoa,
Yeah, that's real. It's funny. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because it doesn't. You just assume.
Yeah,
you're a child. You're like, everything must be good, and you're like, oh, okay. I have to discern between good and bad, whatever that means.
Yeah, exactly. It just, it wasn't what I thought it was. Come to learn, it was the same thing with sort of Sandinista. It was interesting. I use also like kind of the same comparison with the Scream record, Still Screaming, like side B was just different than side A. And yeah, it was kind of the same thing with Sandinista. The Clash are like my favorite band, the most amazing, punk rock band. And yeah, it was the same thing. I bought that record and I just was young. I just didn't get it, you know?
Oh yeah. You weren't ready for that.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important too, because I mean, obviously, a lot of the bands that you were playing with, you know, in the mid to late '80s, especially, you know, once the rock world started to descend on the hardcore scene and bands started to transition, I so distinctly remember, you know, buying like Uniform Choices, Staring at the Sun, and being like, "This is not Screaming for a Change. What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
As a child, I don't understand it. I'm like, you should put out every record that sounds like Screaming for a Change. There's no choice, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because you're a naive kid, and you don't think things should change, and and you like what you like, but then again, when you mature, just like with food or whatever, you just like to experience different sounds and different flavors, and it's awesome. Just maturing.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And so for you, was guitar, I mean, you mentioned as you were, being a spaz in class, you were just drumming along and everything. Were you attracted to drums first, or did guitar kind of come into it? Like, what was your first love?
Yeah, it's funny. I was the drummer. It was funny, growing up, I wound up moving out to the Inland Empire, probably in the 4th or 5th grade. And I met other kids that were sort of into skating and punk. And so there was a handful of us, and we were like, hey, we all like punk. Let's start a band. None of us knew how to play any instruments whatsoever. So it was kind of like, I'll play drums, I'll play bass, I'll play, it was just everyone, just said, like, this is what I'm going to do. So I had no idea. I've never played drums once in my life. I bought a drum kit, and I was the drummer, of our first, band.
Sure.
I think I was 13 years old. I think, I was about 13. And so, and then, the bass player, bought instruments and, bought a little amp, and we go to my parents' garage, and we're starting our band, and what, you suck, I couldn't play drums. I was terrible.
Sure.
And so we had we just really had to, go to just start thinking this through. We're like, oh wait, do we know anyone that knows how to play drums? Because I was like, I'm moving the bass, it turned out there was a kid in our neighborhood that we were friends with, and he, knew how to play drums a little better. So he was the drummer, and I went to bass, and we just moved around instruments until we figured it out,
Yeah, I love that notion of, I can close my eyes and picture you guys picking instruments, and like, it's like the most beautiful kid logic possible.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Like it was hilarious.
Right.
My parents are like, what are you doing buying a drum set? What's going on here? But they were pretty supportive. I was surprised.
That's cool. And especially too, where it's like, oh, you're going to be making that much noise, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. I bet they're happy it was short-lived.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, they probably listened after the first couple times you were, messing around on the drums, to be like, oh, okay, we don't have to worry about this long term.
Yeah. But we did, we did practice at my parents' house for years, so my parents, I don't know how they put up with our noise for all those years.
Well, I'm sure too, like that was segues nicely into another question I was going to ask you, with your parents starting to see this weird music you're taking home and all of these different elements that they probably had no notion of where you were coming from. Were they, I guess, concerned about the road you were going down? Were they like, what are these X's Ryan's putting on his hands? Like, what is all this stuff? Well,
earlier on, we were just, when we threw this thing together, we were just a punk band. Our favorite bands were The Descendants and Social Distortion. Those were the bands that we knew of. There wasn't, that we didn't know, like, really the micro underground. It was the bands that we were able to go to the local record store, which was like Music Plus, you know, and whatever records they had there. That's how we, you know, learned about punk. Really, it was like the Circle Jerks and all the kind of, you know, bigger punk bands. So we didn't, you know, really know anything about America's hardcore, like the, you know, the more independent scene. We didn't know about it. So yeah, we started off and we were just, you know, trying to write songs kind of like Social Distortion. And that's really how we started. And yeah, my parents were not supportive whatsoever. I mean, they they were supportive in regards to, they let us practice for some reason in our garage, which was awesome. But once they saw that there was kind of a fashion change, like all of a sudden, you know, we were cutting, you know, each other's hair and dyeing it and, you know, kind of getting more into punk and wearing bracelets and, you know, buying boots and, you know, shopping in the Army surplus store. That's when they became alarmed. They were not into that.
I like it how I mean, it is true. It's like once the fashion starts to change, and then that's when the alarm bells can go off where it's like, oh, so they're serious about this.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they were not stoked. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was a lot of fighting. You know, back then we're talking, you know, 82, you know, it was not in fashion, you know, to be a punk, you would get in fights and, you know, it was not in fashion. It was the jocks versus the punks. And there was drama and they were trying to create this just easy lifestyle living in the suburbs, just, you know, and, then they saw there was tension, you know, cause I looked different, you know, than the other kids or what they were used to seeing as normal, you know?
Right, right. Well, and two, like that, you're talking about two different waves hitting at that time of, you know, the mainstream media culture looking at punk as this, you know, degeneration of society. If your kids get into this, then, you know, I mean, it's almost as bad as metal, where it's like, oh, you're either trying to take apart the government or you're worshiping Satan. Those are the two ways that you go if you're getting into this style of music.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. I remember there was like this, you know, I remember we went to a Fear show, and yeah, I remember the news was there recording it. And we were on the news. We were all excited. We were on the news. But yeah, it was all about these kids are anti-parent. And we're like, what? You know, it's like, the media was having a field day. It was not a good time for punk.
Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Band merch is the name of the game, and that is what I care about, and that is what you should care about, because realistically, that is the life's blood that makes our independent music scene go round. And rockabilia.com is the place where you should visit. They are one of the finest vendors on the interwebs for band merch. And all joking aside, I love this company so much because they have everything for everybody. I don't care whether you're into classic rock, punk, hardcore, whatever it is, they got something for you. Use this promo code 100 words or less. That gets you 10% off. Again, 100 words or less. That's the number 100. Gets you 10% off your entire order. They just released a rad, under oath, only limited to their web store shirt design that I helped them bring to life, and I was very excited about that. But that's just one out of 499,999 items they have. So much stuff. You'll have fun. Visit rockabilia.com. 100 words or less is the promo code. 10% off your new order. Your new order? Or how about just your old order? How about any old order? Anyways, thank you, Rockabilia, for your continued support. Have fun shopping there. As you started to, go through high school and play some shows and put together some of those first bands, I mean, I know you obviously played in Justice League and then, Chain of Strength. Did you have kind of like a quote unquote life path for yourself? Was there any like, oh, I'm going to follow my father's footsteps and work in sales? Or was there any notion of what your life would look like as far as a quote unquote career is concerned?
Yeah, a little bit. Unfortunately, it was always in back of my mind. It was terrible having that pressure of, you have to have a normal, upbringing. You have to look a certain way. You have to go to school. You have to get this job. It's just, it was kind of a curse. I love now that, things have changed so much it was tough. It was always in the back of my head, that this awesome roller coaster is going to end, and it really held me back.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure too that, cause I think most parents, as they're going through watching their kid get into something that is, not what many of their friends' kids are getting into, it's usually that it's fear-based, where it's like, I'm just concerned that my child is going to go down a road and then, become a degenerate and, not have a job and all this other stuff. And so I can understand where that fear is coming from.
Definitely. And it can easily happen. I remember my parents tried some tough love on me. I told them, I'm going on tour, with my band. It was Justice League. It was 1986. We just finished high school and we were going to jump in a van, and go on tour. And there were definitely bands that paved the way, but it was still pretty sketchy in 86. And, so, my parents were trying tough love. If you're not going to go straight to college, then we're cutting you off financially. And I was like, okay, well, we kind of have this figured out. At least we thought we did. We're going to get paid this amount to get gas money to go to this place, and so I was like, okay, whatever. I'm on my own. Well, it was just like. It was, much tougher than I thought. And, the tough love, I guess, worked a little bit, but it didn't stop me,
Oh, absolutely. Right. You're just like, well, okay. Now I know that I'm not going to be able to call my parents to Western Union me some money.
Yeah.
And so with Justice League, like you said, that was, your first, I'm going to use air quotes, like legitimate band in regards to, putting out records and, touring and stuff like that. Were you immediately taken in by the touring lifestyle? Was it, all that you had thought it was going to be? Or was it like, oh my gosh, this is drastically different than, not like you expected to be touring on a bus or anything like that, but, tour is a whole different thing on the DIY level.
Yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. I met so many fantastic people, but it was funny, the road there, like learning about it, how to tour. So I just remember, like, hanging out with Ron from Stalag 13. They hit the road and they didn't play too much around the US or anything, but they at least, I believe, did like a West Coast tour. And so I remember he bought Drew from America's Hardcore. He bought his van. Drew had moved to San Francisco to play in Crucifix. And so Ron bought his van. And so Ron was showing me like, hey, this is how you dial your van, so you build a loft and then you sleep on the loft and then you put all your equipment under the loft. Like he was, so I was like, oh, wow, this is how you do it. So we had to, there's a lot, we didn't know, there was, it was just unknown. So it was kind of like, It was like Justice League, No Effects. There was like a handful of bands that hit the road in 1986, and we were all clueless. But it was an amazing summer. Just meeting people that you've been corresponding with through the mail. Of course, there wasn't email or cell phones or texting, so it was just, and then there are the people I'm still friends with now, amazing people, I can remember meeting Greg Anderson in Seattle. He was in a band and just meeting amazing people. We met Dave Stein. I don't know if you know him, but he's like, one of the, he became a lawyer, and he's like one of the hardcore lawyers. He represents but he's an amazing guy. And Brian Krishner also, he became a sort of a hard, kind of a punk rock lawyer.
Yeah, for sure.
And just amazing people I've met. Just every city you hit, you would meet amazing people. And so I was all in. I was terrible at the driving part of it. But I would, I just loved the adventure. It was amazing. Like it was just a awesome adventure.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's really exciting. Cause yeah, I mean, you were not only experiencing all this stuff for the first time, but you were in this community and collection of bands that were experiencing most of this stuff for the first time as well.
Yeah, it was great. And we got to play with some of the, the bands that we're so, influenced by. And we played with the Descendants and Dag Nasty. We played like a handful of shows with Descendants and Dag Nasty, and they were like, two of my favorite bands. So this was, it was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know that the touring that takes place now, is so drastically different than back then, not only because of all the technological advances, but, bands like you didn't, I mean, yes, you kind of toured to quote unquote make a living, but there was no real roadmap with that. So as you guys started to like go out there with Justice League and then, the limited touring that you did with Chain of Strength, was it something where it was just like, we just have to do this because obviously we want to play shows and of course want to get out to the East Coast and stuff like that? Or was there like, oh, maybe next time a few more people will show up?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know exactly what the drive was. I think it was really, I think it was about having fun, and meeting people. And, there was, of course, a little bit of delivering a message. We wanted you want your songs to be heard. So there's definitely that. But yeah, it was just really a vehicle to have a good time. That was really it. Just meet people, and learn different cultures. And oh my God, I learned so much, because here I am, I'm stuck in a suburban, city, where there's not a lot of culture and not a lot of, everyone looks the same, and it was amazing through punk rock, I met so many different people with different cultures. And that's how I learned about, vegetarianism and politics. And I remember, I must have been 13 or 14. I was super young. And I remember, we would have to go, to get to the record stores that were, or the shows were in, bad parts of town and all that. And I just remember meeting people that had a cause, like I remember going to this kind of rock against racism kind of thing, at 13 and just, oh man, it was just, I didn't realize there was all this going on, so it really opened my eyes, and changed, it really changed who I am.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like how you articulated that because it does expand your world, not only in getting to go to these different cities and see how different people live, but then also just that idea that the world is even bigger than yourself and your experiences based on those political causes. And like you said, veganism, vegetarianism, Hare Krishna, like all the things that start to impact, you're like, wow, like this is crazy. Like I didn't even know that this existed.
Exactly. And I would bring it home and I would, tell my, my family and tell my friends and just try to change the way we lived. And, it was just like, you take so much for granted, And so that was awesome, just changing. And it's it's funny. My parents to this day, they say, wow, when you brought these ideals home, we never thought that this is the way life was changing. And it was amazing, just learning from other cultures.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
UFOs, psychic powers, chemtrails. For years, we've all listened to the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast to get to the bottom of the biggest mysteries in popular culture. And now, hosts Ben Bolin, Matt Frederick, and Noel Brown are separating conspiracy fact from conspiracy theory in the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book. With cool heads and extensive research, the guys break down the wildest conspiracy theories, from biological testing and the secrets of lobbying to our endless fascination with the Kennedy assassination. The Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book is smart, witty, and it's written in the same conversational style you love from the podcast. Plus, it's packed with some amazing illustrations. If you're looking for a book that explains the unexplainable and uses truth as a weapon against ignorance, misinformation, and lies, this is it. The Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book is available now. Order today at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com or wherever you buy your books.
And I know much was made and still is made about the 80s scene, especially in the early 80s scene, being so violent, as far as especially, Los Angeles, and I know arguably, Orange County as well. Oh, yeah. Did you personally, I guess, kind of like feel that? Because I know there is this whole, idea that not that things get viewed with rose-colored glasses, like, people are blowing the violence out of proportion because clearly, there's enough where there's smoke, there's fire. But, did you personally, I guess, like encounter that and see that in the, shows that you were going to and attending?
Yeah, most definitely. Oh, man, some of the scenes were insane. Like San Diego had a very violent scene. It was just, it was crazy. There were a lot of fights, and I dodged a bullet. We're so lucky that I was in so many circumstances where I could have got, hurt. Fortunately, didn't. It was a riot at the Palladium. I think it was, I want to say the Ramones and Black Flag, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a riot, and cops were beating the shit out of people with billy clubs and spraying. And I just remember I was with the Ill Repute guys, and I remember we were just like running from the cops, and thankfully they knew Hollywood, how to get around. I didn't know shit about Hollywood, and they took us to this, top of this building, and we were just like looking over and just watching all of the violence, So yeah, there was crazy shit. I remember there was a venue called the Thunderbird or T-Bird, and I remember a good friend of ours was, slamming in the, pit, and somebody had like, and I'm not saying this probably still happens, but, had brass knuckles and just he punched him in the face, and it lost all of his teeth, and we had to like carry him to the hospital. There was just a lot of just crazy. Punk was just, it was raging, and you would get like just such a counterculture mix of people. And it was like, and there were a lot of gangs. It was crazy. I remember, it turns out, we were in a band called Justice League, and there was a pretty violent gang called The League. And I remember I was at a club, and it was an amazing show. And I remember, someone, this big dude says, hey, saw my shirt, Justice League. And he said, there's only one league. And I just remember, thankfully I had some, a lot of friends out there. But this dude, Big Bob from Aggression, I mean, he was kind of in that world, but he just really took me under his wing and took care of me. Like, he grabbed me and he said, don't fuck with this guy, and I was just super lucky, I just figure it is kind of a karma thing. I try to be a good person. I haven't been perfect, of course. I've made mistakes, but and I just feel like a lot of these people have taken care of me in some, desperate times.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is one of those things. I think that, often, especially people that speak about it and romanticize the violence, where it's just like that wasn't cool. Like, that was cool.
No,
no one wants to be, beat up and going to a show like that. And so, yeah, it's a shame that some people take the wrong messages from the idea that, this is what, stage diving and mosh pits are. And it's just, I wish that wasn't the case, but yeah. What I wanted to hit on was, I know you've watched Straight Edge in regards to, just the different evolutions and morphing as each subsequent generation has gotten into it. And I mean generations in a, human perspective, but every 3 or 4 years, it obviously changes. How do you feel about it kind of now in regards to looking at all of the different iterations of it since, you started to claim that when you were in Chain of Strength?
You mean just like the different genres of hardcore and
and just kind of the movement, obviously when it got violent in the mid to late 90s, and just kind of the evolution of it as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. I love the innocence of it. Back in the 80s, I loved it, and it's I must say it. There's still the underground that I'm not even aware of. I try to stay in touch, but it's, it just seems a little corporate to me. Part of the fun, for myself and a lot of my friends growing up in that time was searching for the music, like finding it and searching for it. Now you don't really need to. It's really a few clicks away, you can go on, Bandcamp and just listen to a million different, things. It's just different. I mean, it was such a small scene. You would go to a show and, you would meet people just like yourself all over the country. It's just changed a lot. I guess my only kind of sort of analogy would be I just feel like it's more corporate, it feel like hardcore is turned into sort of Amazon or Walmart, in a way. But again, I try to dig deep. I love discovering young new bands. That's super exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because they're, no matter how much it's quote unquote changed, there are still, pieces of evidence and threads of oh yeah, that's cool. I still see that this is an important part to Straight Edge, to what they're doing now in, 2021 or the future or whatever.
Well, you're fed so much now on the internet, and it's all about do you have the best PR person who's going to get, your name out there? I'm always, I love the underground. I just love the bands that they don't have that, they don't have the money, or they don't know the right people. They don't, it's not constantly just fed to you or in your face, I'm always striving to find those bands.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be mad at myself if I did not punish you about Circle Storm, because I honestly think that because you guys started to play like right around, I mean, I'm 41 years old and I started to go to shows when I was 15 or 16. And you guys definitely, I mean, you honestly played like what, 7 shows, 8 shows maybe, or am I wrong in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's more like 3 possibly, but
okay.
It was, it was just kind of a fun project. Why that sort of came about is, there was a member in that band, a good friend of ours, Doug Bellows, and, he kind of missed out being in a Chain of Strength. He was trying out, and, you can only have one bass player. So he kind of missed out. And then, years later, we're still friends. He's just like, God, I still feel like I missed, I want to write songs and be in a band with you guys, so, we kind of did it as sort of a fun thing, but our heads weren't really there. And yeah, we didn't put the effort that was necessary towards that. So it was just kind of like a fun thing we did.
Right, a fun project, yeah. Well, I mean, it felt like that in a in a way. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but it definitely felt like. I mean, I think the first time I saw you guys was like the the Westminster Manor with Ignite.
Okay, yeah. I think that was one of the 3 shows.
Totally, and I just remember being so stoked because I had never saw Chain of Strength in its original iteration because I was too young.
Yeah.
But then to watch that, I was just like, wait a minute, like this is so cool that I get to watch these guys who I really like play the songs that I still like, and then all of a sudden pull out a Chain of Strength cover, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But that's so cool that you were. Because I didn't know that you were kind of circling back just to, kind of have fun with your friend. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And kind of along that same tip, because I know that, I mean, you were the proprietor of Ambassador Records, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I think so.
Yes. So, I know that kind of the business side of things always maybe intrigued you just from like an outsider's perspective where, putting out records and, maybe booking shows and being the, one of the more outgoing people in the bands that you played in. And then clearly now with Quiet Panic and the management side of things, had you always been drawn to the business aspect of it? Or was that just a function of like, oh, well, Ryan will do it?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I enjoy that. I never, learned properly how to run a business. And it initially started with, we all, our group of friends just always, if we couldn't make things happen, we would just do it ourselves. That was just what we learned, growing up. That's how the guys from Youth Brigade did it. That's how, we just followed. What did the Stern brothers do? They put on their own shows, They had their own record label. They had their band, So that's where we learned it. So we were like, if no one's going to do it for us, we're going to do it ourselves. So we put on shows. I mean, Chain of Strength's first show, we put it on ourselves,
Sure.
We put on the shows, and then again, when there was kind of a lull in, sort of like shows, nobody was, calling us up. We were like, hey, it turns out, I remember I sort of, kind of discovered Spankies. I don't know if you're familiar, which kind of turned into the Corona Showcase.
Yep.
But this random band was playing in Riverside at this place called Spankies. And I was like, wow, like this is a possible new, place for shows to happen. So I called the owner, this guy, Izad, and I said, hey, can I put on shows here? Do you have a promoter? Like, do you have a booker? Like, what's up? And he's like, no, this is a restaurant, we're dying. We need people to come to the restaurant. And I said, well, hey, this might be another revenue stream. Let's try this out. And yeah, it turned out that it worked pretty well for him where, beyond me, there was shows there for years. And then he moved on. He went for a bigger spot, so that's how, we grew up in that. It's like do it yourself. So with the record label, that was it. My first record label was Foundation Records, and we were kind of just like, hey, let's do it ourselves, and it was, in regards to like, did we have proper funding? We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We just thought like, hey, if there's a way to sort of make a, business out of this, so we don't have to work our shitty jobs at, wherever Taco Bell or wherever they were, we were like, let's try to figure this out. Discord did it, let's try to figure this out. So yeah, it was just not properly ran because, I was young and I was busy, trying to be in a band and trying to do this and trying to be social and, just, what it takes to run a label. It's not easy, but, so yeah, I feel it was important, try things and fail. I think it's a good thing. I've learned a lot. And so I've tried and failed a number of times. Hopefully we got it right this time. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and especially too, because it's not like you're doing this because you want to serve a function, obviously, for your band, but then at the same time of trying to figure out what a business means, with your friends and mixing it with art. Like there's so many things that could go wrong. So I can I can understand the idea of just like, well, I can't do this anymore. Like we just lost, or I just lost $2,000 in putting this thing out because, we had to ship it to Europe and I didn't even consider that or whatever. And so, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah,
man. We had, I think we had, just with Foundation Records, when we launched that, we had, I think it could have been something really great. It was unfortunate. It was just like one mistake just can crash the whole thing. And that's exactly what happened when there was, a partner or somebody in New Jersey that, was going to be the distro. And then it turns out, we send all the records there and then they don't pay us. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, we didn't have the funds or planning, we didn't plan to lose, and so it ended, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that like you have still been, active within the, hardcore scene in regards to, like going to shows and participating and always have had an active interest. And, that bleeds definitely into what you're doing with, Quiet Panic and obviously the management side of things. But I'm going to guess, over those many years, you've also been, just doing the quote unquote real job. And obviously you have a family and all these other things because, hardcore can only pay so many bills. Usually 0 bills. But so like what's kept you busy and I guess attached to the music scene in general? Because, you don't have to still care about this, but you do.
Yeah, exactly. I have a day job and, I love it and it pays the bills and it gives me the opportunity to have, these other ventures, call them hobbies, whatever you want to call them. I put my heart, and soul into them. But yeah, it's awesome. And I love just watching, bands grow. I just love it. I've just, it's such an exciting thing. I watched again, like I had mentioned, I grew up with, the NoFX guys. It was just like amazing, watching them grow. It's just, so anyways, that's why I still love it. I still love music. I want to be involved. So this is, my way of contributing and being involved and working with bands. And I love it. It's way, like I mentioned, it's way more corporate now. You have to have an agent and a manager. And I hate that aspect of it, but I'm sort of, it's nice in some ways because it does carve out a living for some people. I love talking to these agents and they work with these bands and they make a living off of it. Or, there are, various managers, it's just, I know it's an important piece to the puzzle, but yeah, it's kind of, it strays away from the original way things were. I mean, you just watch Bad Religion, for instance, you know what I mean? You watch, when they started in, the 80s, early 80s, I saw them. One of my first shows was in 82. And it was, Bad Religion. The record, was out for a couple months. How could hell be any worse? And I mean, you watch them then and you watch them now, you know what I mean? It's just, now they, have, probably, a bus driver and roadies and, and an agent and a manager. And it's just different, It's just different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's once people understood that there was a commodification that could happen with this, that happens because capitalism. But to your point earlier of just there's always going to be that bubbling undercurrent, and that, that's what I see personally, just identifying in what you're doing with Quiet Panic, and obviously the management stuff too, where you're aligning yourself with, bands or artists that should be highlighted. And you're just well, not only am I helping them with my time, but I want to invest some of my own capital in them as well in order to get their music heard by a wider variety of people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our goal is, if we break even, it's a good day, and it's more than that too. It's all about, I grew up, it was kind of a boys club, every band, there weren't too many females involved in the scene. And, so yeah, I mean, the two bands I'm working with, Slow Crush and Filth is Eternal are female fronted bands. And that's really important for, I think, what we're doing. We're trying to, push that and just try to find different, again, you got bills to pay, so they have to be, to a decent, size. They have to hit some levels, but yeah, I just love what they're doing. And, there's a lot of bands where we're trying to help out and putting our time and energy, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. The last thing I want to hit on was the fact that, once focusing on Chain of Strength in regards to, once you guys came back and started to, play some shows and reunions and that whole stuff, was it, I'm sure that there were many points in which you're just this is silly. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just in this is crazy. I can't believe this many people are paying attention to us. I can't believe this show was that cool. When did it, I guess, become, for lack of a better term, real to you that you, Chain of Strength had this sort of impact where you were able to kind of see it reflected back on you, whether it was a show or whether it was just kind of the general feedback that you were receiving from once you guys decided to, start to play shows again?
Yeah, it was a battle. We had so many opportunities just through the years, and we were just kind of waiting for the right time. And I don't even, know if that was the right or wrong time, but, just trying to get, what was important to us is have the original members of the band. There was no way we were going to do it without the original members. And so that was kind of, someone, we all are kind of in it for different reasons as well. Again, it was always for me, it was just a vehicle to have fun and meet people and travel. And then, as you get older, you have different wants and needs, and some of the other guys in the band, they won't, they have their reasons why they want to do this. So yeah, we had a hard time coming together. But once we did, were we satisfied? Probably not. You can't go back. There was times there's a club in Connecticut called the Anthrax, and there's nothing as good as a show at the Anthrax. It's just, you hit an E chord and the crowd goes berserk, and there's this, it's like crack. You feel that energy and that excitement, and you just want it over and over, and nothing lives up to it, And, I don't know, I have a hard time too. It's just, I every time I play, I'm just, was that good? Was that really good? It's never good. It's never good enough to me. I'm never satisfied. I always have that, think, oh, we should have did this. And I had that, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that is a very, refreshingly honest take to the idea, especially because, I mean, clearly it's what prevents like certain bands. I mean, everyone is always going to echo the idea. It's like, oh, it's why, Ian MacKaye will never do a Minor Threat reunion or whatever. It's like, he's like, yeah, there's a time and a place, and like doing it again, it just won't feel the same. And to kind of go through it, not saying you were saying that your whole collective experience of coming back was not worthwhile, but it's just like that idea that, oh, this is like, we can't compare it to the past because this is frankly a whole different experience. And like you said, being critical of yourself, saying it's like, yeah, like, was it that good as the night before or whatever? Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just super critical. And I just, that's just a problem I have.
You're like, that's me. That's not everybody else. Yeah.
That's just me. But yeah, I just, you want that feeling. I think it's just, it's just that experience you had, in 1989 at the Anthrax. Wow. If I can have that every night, it's just like, it's the best medication you could ever take, because it was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate you letting me ping pong around your brain and all these random subjects.
No, this was super fun. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ryan, for coming on the podcast, making some time out of your day, because we're all busy. We got, jobs and kids and other obligations. And Ryan was gracious enough to hang out and spend time with me. So I do appreciate that immensely. Next week, I have Jason Black from Hot Water Music, and Hot Water Music just released a new record on Equal Vision that is extremely good. And that is why Jason is on the podcast. But, as usual, we don't talk about the new record because I care about where this person has come from. I'll, of course, talk about the record in the, intro and outro and tell people to listen to it, and doing it here as well. Jason Black, the bassist of Hot Water Music, is on next week, and I'm very excited about it. So until then, please be safe, everybody.
UFOs, psychic powers, chemtrails. To learn about mysterious events, you listen to the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast. And here's where it gets crazy. Now you can read all about your favorite conspiracy theories in the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book from the creators of the podcast. Dive into a smart, witty explanation of the unexplainable, packed with amazing illustrations. Available now. Order today at StuffYouShouldReadBooks.com or wherever you buy your books.
Hey, I'm Dua Lipa, and I'm thrilled to be back for the second season of my podcast, Dua Lipa at Your Service. Alongside me and my guests' lists and recommendations, the show features conversations with some of my biggest inspirations, working across entertainment, politics, activism, and much, much more. I've been hard at work getting season 2 ready for you all summer long, so please tune in and join me on this very special adventure. Listen to Dua Lipa at Your Service on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you crime curious? iHeartPodcasts has gathered the best true crime all in one podcast feed. iHeart True Crime Plus. It's packed with podcasts about unsolved murders, missing persons, organized crime, and more. So there's always something good to binge and share. iHeart True Crime Plus subscribers also enjoy ad-free listening, early access to select episodes, and exclusive bonus content. Subscribe to iHeart True Crime Plus today, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.